Welcome to Grand Rapids, Michigan, the self-proclaimed Beer City. This new identity has supplanted GR's former identity, Furniture City. Now a city with a booming downtown and an array of revitalized communities on its outskirts, Grand Rapids has grown due to critical investment from entrepreneurial citizens like those who own Creston Brewery. When citizens and their government work together for the good of the community, you get exactly what we see in the Creston district. Creston Brewery is one of the many dozens of breweries in Grand Rapids, but it's not just any brewery. From eclectic art, prints on the walls, floor-to-ceiling windows, and the inviting nature of an open lounge, Creston is the future of Grand Rapids. Unique, artisanal without pretense, and determined to pay respects to what was while looking ahead to what will be. For example, situated in the Creston district of the 2nd Ward, Creston Brewery is housed in what was once a spacious furniture showroom. Welcome to Grand Rapids, Beer City. Take a look at this, a brunch like no other. Hash browns? No. Let's use golden crisp tater tots instead. Bacon? Oh yeah. Cut my pieces as thick as possible. Now layer all of that together into one heaping dish of awesomeness that strikes at anyone's core of good sense. Creston does things their own way, with massive amounts of style and friendliness. They are tireless and they are hardworking. Almost as tireless and hardworking as our guest, Milinda Ysasi. Almost. Milinda is a serial community service do-gooder, currently leading The Source, an employer collaborative to address concerns like childcare, housing, and other basic needs of and for their employees. She serves on several city boards, including the Civil Service Board and the Civilian Appeals Board. As I said, serial do-gooder, hardworking, and tireless. Now, and this is the important part, Milinda is compiling all of that experience into a run for city government. She's running for city commission in the 2nd Ward of Grand Rapids. I'm Jay Mays, and this is SEARED. Amazing food, remarkable people. Milinda.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us on SEARED.
Absolutely, I'm excited.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. We're going to cover a lot of ground.
Okay.
All right, so the first thing we usually do is order a drink.
Okay, sounds good.
Are you good for that?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a favorite beer at Creston? This is your local area.
Yes,
so.
I really like the Panda Bear.
The Panda Bear. Should we get 2 Panda Bears?
Sounds good.
All right. All right, so we got our drink order in. All right, so the first question we call the Igniter.
Okay.
And where I want to start with this question is your role at The Source, how you got started there, and a little bit about your political campaign and anything else you're working on right now.
Sure. So I first learned about The Source when I was working at Cascade Engineering.
Okay.
So I worked at Cascade Engineering for, I think, 13 years.
Wow, okay.
I started there when I was 19 as an intern and left there when I was 31.
Okay.
But when I was there, The Source was an organization that started back in 2003.
Okay.
Cascade had helped create the model, which was really around employers coming together, supporting their employees at work, and employers actually paying into that.
Gotcha.
And so I worked at Cascade, and then I left. I went to Herman Miller, and then I went to Spectrum Health, all places that I really loved. And then when I was at Spectrum, my past coworkers reached out to me and said, The Source is looking for...
Thank you so much.
You are welcome. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. We got the big ones, too.
Yeah, we did get the big ones. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Let's cheers first. Awesome.
That's good. That's my husband's favorite.
Yeah, this is a good one.
And it was really, sort of listening to what they were saying, like, hey, The Source is looking for a new executive director. You have an HR background, but you also do a lot of stuff in the community. And then the guy that was the first executive director of The Source, Andrew Brower, told me it was the best job he ever had.
Wow. That's a heck of an endorsement.
Yeah. And said the people that worked there were really great. And I ended up deciding to take the role. I told my husband, maybe my husband told me, if you don't do this, you'll really regret it. And I think as I've gotten older, I've become less risk averse. Like before, I wanted everything to be like, have the plan and work it out and know what I'm going to do.
Follow exactly along with my plan.
Yeah. And what I've learned is like the path is not linear.
Right.
And my path has not been linear at all.
That's fun.
Yeah. So it's more like a jungle gym or something, or
I like
maybe
that,
a climbing wall. I don't do that, but but
you're finding your route as you go. Like you're strategically moving, but you might have to jump over.
Yeah, I think you have to have a plan, but also be open to things.
Yeah.
And, you know, I have a background in business, so I was always in HR, and this is sort of like, my role today is really like, I'm in sales. It's sales and marketing, you're trying to branding, you're trying to promote an organization, get people to join it. So I've been there for the last 4 years, and it's been great. So I really love that.
You're the executive director of the Source, correct?
Yep, I am.
So that, I mean, part of your job is building a team as well. That's a big part of your work.
Absolutely.
Interesting. We'll talk more about that later.
Okay, yeah.
So let's talk about your campaign for City Commission.
Sure. So I'm running for Second Ward City Commission here in Grand Rapids. I'm running to succeed Ruth Kelly, who's been our commissioner for, the last 10 years, and who is an amazing leader. A lot of people know Ruth. She was a community organizer. She's just always been involved with supporting Grand Rapids and neighborhoods. And I'm really honored that she's endorsed me and is supporting me. She's like one of the hardest working volunteers, her entire family, which is pretty awesome. And so the election is on Tuesday, November 5th. So
vote. We're going to talk the importance of voting later. Just in general.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
This is about you, but I want to make sure we get into like because you've geared your career towards helping people in the community. I want to talk a little bit about the community and voting and that sort of thing.
Right.
Later.
Absolutely. No. I mean, there's so many things that have happened too in policy changes with Prop 3. Now we have no reason absentee voting, same day voter registration.
Yeah. Good point.
And that's also been part of the campaign. Is like certainly I want to win, but also like how do we make sure people have more access to vote, that it becomes easier.
Interesting.
You know, that's really important to me.
So if you had to, you know, list the fundamentals of your campaign, like what you really want to, you know, help the community with, what are those things?
Absolutely. So the first is really making sure that there are business employment opportunities for our entire city. We have such growth and prosperity in Grand Rapids, and yet it's not reaching all of our residents. We know that from, you know, the city is embarked on a third ward equity fund because there has been less investment in the third ward than there have been in the first and second ward. And even though I'd be running to be the second ward city commissioner, I think it's important to say, like, all our wards have to be prosperous. Right. And how
many wards are there?
There's 3 wards.
There's 3 wards.
There's 2 commissioners per ward,
and
then the mayor, and then the city managers, and the city commission hires that person, Mark Washington. So for me, it's really about like, how do you make sure that talent and opportunity meets in our city? I've met a lot of people who, you know, have great degrees and experience, but are oftentimes underemployed in our city. And a lot of times it's that access. I always say it's like your pie, it's your performance. You need to have really strong performance, but it's also your image and your exposure. So
pie,
to me,
P-I-E.
P-I-E, yeah.
I like it.
It's I didn't make it up. It's like a professional development thing. So let me just not trademark that. But it is this whole idea that, I mean, every job that I probably had since my first job has been because somebody else has reached out to me and said, I think you'd be a good fit, or did you see this, or encouraged me to, you know, apply for it, and I want to do the same thing for people. So to me, part of like growing in a city is also like growing social capital and making sure we can connect one another. So I hope to do that in the Source and with my, you know, with the campaign. The second is really making sure we have a safe and accessible public safety system. So I really believe that the issues facing communities and really this country around, you know, policing, community policing, how different communities, particularly communities of color, feel of their interactions with the police. To me, it's not a zero-sum game. I don't want to be, I am not, you know, against the police. I'm not against community. I want to sort of like work together to solve these issues. I think a lot of it just has to do with lived experience. I mean, when I was 18, I was charged with a crime that I didn't commit. And luckily my parents had, you know, the $25,000 or $3,000 that they needed to pay to get an attorney to get a video that showed that I was paying gas when they had said that I had stolen gas.
Wow.
And I tell this story because
that's important.
So many people have had that experience, either where they get stuck into a system. I was just at something this past week, Friday, where really looking at how do we revise like our pre-trial conference and bail situation here in the state. You know, how do we not criminalize people for being poor?
Right.
And making sure that people aren't missing out on those employment and, you know, in those job opportunities because perhaps they're incarcerated for much longer than they should be for low-level offenses. So really kind of that system and structure and policy around the criminal legal system. How do we police and interact with young people differently? I think that's an issue that hopefully everybody in our community can get around. And then just making sure there's more mental health supports for individuals who are interacting with, you know, the police department or any other sort of public service. Even so, like I have a family, or really my family member, it's my friend from Grand Valley. One of her sons is autistic, and you know, as he grows and gets bigger, you know, our concern is like, you know, his responses to authority are going to be very different than like say you or I.
Sure.
And so how do we make sure people that you know, maybe have just different experience, different lived experiences, aren't victim to a system that is not understanding sort of the root causes of what's going on in their life.
Right. So is that a matter of training on the side of the police force, like in that type of interaction? Yeah,
I mean, I think, you know, and I don't have the stats off my head, but so often, I was watching the Patriot Act, so I'm gonna and he recently had one of his issues was around policing and use of force, and really talking about the fact that, you know, many police officers, public safety officers get quite a bit of training, but a lot of it is in the use of weapons and not in sort of like de-escalation techniques. And I've talked to some police officers in the city. I was part of a group called Policing at the Speed of Trust that the city put on with the police department. And I think it's just that issue. It's like there's just never enough, like, you know, time. How do we frame this? How do we make sure that this is something that, you know, we provide this training on a regular basis? So I think like de-escalation techniques, you know, I mean, you know, I often feel like with young people, like their brains are developing in a different way. Like the way that I would respond to things when I was 15 versus the way that I respond to things at 39 are totally different. And so just like sort of recognizing that, particularly with young people, with people, you know, facing addiction, mental health issues is really important.
I mean, in my mind, like police come from the community, right? They're members of the community, but they are trained in the enforcement of all these different laws, right? And all these different scenarios. But rounding that out with, like you said, sort of the community community involvement and community conversation seems like an important step, because both sides should be treating each other like they're members of the same community at this point.
Right, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think when we can make sure that, you know, what happens sort of in my neighborhood is going to be different than what happens in the first or the second ward. But how do we sort of like know those people? I think neighborhood associations are an integral part of that work here in Grand Rapids. We have a great neighborhood association, the Creston Neighborhood Association, really looking for those ways, you know, with our community police officer to make sure that person knows what's going on in the neighborhood, what's going on in the community. Just pledges to like also just look out for one another, neighbors.
Absolutely.
I mean, we've had people that have like shoveled our lawn, or shoveled our snow, mowed our lawn.
They can shovel your lawn too.
And so just really making sure that people feel that so there's this poster when I was in San Francisco a few years back. I was at a conference, and it said, you know, we don't watch our neighbors, we see them. So this whole idea of like how do we move from like neighborhood watch and very sort of a deficit based to more of an asset based system where I know my neighbor, I see them, I smile. You know, we've had where I live, we've had a lot of new people sort of move in over the last couple of years. You know, I think it's still very affordable for the most part in our community where I live. And just recognizing that somebody you saw last week might be a new person, or maybe they're moving in with their family, or they're renting it out, and just really being much more asset-based in our thinking than trying to think everything is negative.
That's interesting you brought up deficit thinking, because it's almost, it seems to me to be fear-based. Is that accurate? Like that sort of mentality that I need to overprotect myself. I need to be afraid of people.
I mean, I think some of it is like our brain and just the unconscious bias that we all have. You know, we make assumptions. Like, I mean, we met each other and we probably did like, I'm like, okay, you know, you got your green jacket on. Like, are you a hipster? You know, I don't know. But, you know, you know, people judge me. And I mean, when I was walking and meeting people, I had people that were wonderful and supportive.
Yeah.
And I had also like at least one person who was like, "What country were you born in?" And I was like, "I was born here in Grand Rapids, sir. Thank you. Have a nice day. You're probably not going to vote for me, right?" And so some of that is just our innate, like we have patterns in our brain, like so we
from experiences,
from lived experiences, and so how do we train our brain to not think that way?
Sure.
Whether it's thinking that a certain area is going to be a bad area because maybe one bad thing happened there, or there's not a lot of lights, or because of the lack of investment. So I think we could probably have a whole podcast on just like that issue.
We could talk forever just on that.
But really, and I think a lot of organizations have been very focused on that, and I think, like I said, neighborhood associations are going to be leading that, where again we see our neighbors, we don't touch them.
That's interesting. Well, I appreciate you enumerating the pillars of your campaign, because I think those are important for people to understand you through those. And everything I've learned about the source, I think, to me has been remarkable. Like it's just something that when you see employees working with employers on good positive outcomes for the company and for the community, I think that's magic to me. Like that, you don't see that everywhere. Some companies are, a little more hostile towards their workforce. And to know that companies are participating in your organization, funding it in a lot of ways, I think that's awesome.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it is. I mean, I feel like this job, again, my husband was right. If I didn't take it, I would have been like, kicking myself, because this job has really put me in a position where I can, run for office, where I can, take sort of that experience as a practitioner in a nonprofit, see what people are sort of dealing with, and then take that into like the policy framework that is the city commission and working with the city government. So I think that's super important. I think
we need more of that. Like I think we need more people with experience, whatever their life experience might be, but especially that have cross-trained across business and across community and social to be in politics.
Absolutely.
Instead of like politicians.
Yeah, I like to think of it as I want to be a public servant.
You are a public servant, Well, absolutely.
So but I think overall, just that whole idea of it's like the innovation that those leaders had to come up with this model. And I think it can be applied in a lot of different ways.
I do too.
And we've grown. We're part of a national network called Work Lab Innovations based out of Denver. So about 2.5 years ago, we worked with 3 other like organizations and have been helping other communities around the country to develop similar models to the source.
Interesting. So you have some replicated models of your model that you guys have developed.
Absolutely.
Oh,
so
fascinating.
Chicago, Detroit, Northern Virginia. Blanking on some of the other places, but
that's okay. So we can put the list online.
Okay. I mean, we kind of just, every community is different, but I think if we can, and I think more businesses and more larger scale business, more enterprise businesses have also reached out to say, how do we do this? Because the talent market is such that employers need to differentiate their work experience.
Absolutely.
And I like to think of it as, okay, so most businesses would look at and have a customer segment. How do we make sure we reach out to them? What's the way to differentiate ourselves? Right. And then I think the employers that are going to be really successful are the ones that say, how do we treat our employees as consumers of our work experience? And essentially that's what they're providing. And so the more that you think about it that way, the more you become more people-centered, more people-focused. Think about local organizations like Local First that believe in a people-first economy. That's really kind of how I see this work in that same vein.
Carefully crafted mini chimneys with goat cheese and cream cheese. A flaky shell stuffed with red and green bell pepper and scallions, served with an egregious amount of habanero jelly. They come out looking like little golden pillows. Undeniably rich and ridiculously flavorful, the mini chimney can and should be enjoyed for any meal. Breakfast, brunch, lunch, you name it. Hot, spicy, sweet, tart, all tempered by the rich dairy. So well balanced, so delicious. So we talked about the source, we talked about the campaign. I want to talk about the teams that are required to run each of those. Because as a politician, you're managing a team to get elected, and then you're going to manage a community. So how you build teams to me is interesting and important.
Okay. Thinking about teams and being around people, is just really important to me. I'm an extrovert, so I get a lot of energy from being around people. I have this office where it's too big, and so at the source I tell the team like, hey, what are you doing? Can I come hang out? And we've actually like reconfigured the office quite a bit.
That's awesome.
Mostly I think that's from my days at Herman Miller, just really recognizing, like even the space that we're in right now, today at Creston, like they have a lot of different ways that people are connecting and eating.
That's
and so
true.
I think that's the same way for working, in a nonprofit. So we just actually created a couple more sort of, co-working spaces where people can work together.
Gotcha.
I mean, I always tell people, if you want to come and work in my office, or sometimes I work in another room. And so working with teams to me is, and especially in a smaller group, it's this whole idea of, this is from like my business school days, like mutual adjustment. So we have sort of like standards and rules and like, the culture of a team. So our biggest things is like, we are not going to be the biggest payer. There's not this career ladder you're going to climb, but we're going to be probably one of the most flexible places that we can be in terms of employment for our staff. That's core to our culture. Second is we value feedback, and that's both timely and specific. So if something's not going right, tell somebody. I'm not really about sort of things being passive aggressive, or if something's bothering you. Like there's only like 2 levels. Like you can come and talk to me. Yes. It's not a big deal. And then probably the third, because I like things in threes, is would really be just this idea of like you pitch in whenever is needed. So like I answer the phone if everybody happens to be busy, or greet somebody if somebody happens to walk away from the door, and vice versa, and cover one another. So when I think about the team that we're building, is like you really look at what people's strengths are, I think for sure, but you also look at what people's, what is their desire, what do they want to do more of. So we have some people who are really interested in working on things around like mental health supports. We have others that are really focused on how do we become a more equitable organization and more aware of things that we need to be, to be supporting and promoting as an inclusive and safe space for our clients. Right. And then we have people who just how do we have more fun? So like people who plan like the happy hours or lunches that we have together. Right. We used to do this thing where everybody brought in an item for salad on Wednesdays, and we make this salad. It was like salad
just
bar
a random.
Wednesdays.
That's fun. Yeah.
We kind of got away from that because we were growing a little bit, but like we always celebrate birthdays. Sure. So for me, the biggest thing that I can do as a leader is this is like, if nobody takes anything else from this podcast, is when people come to me and say, hey Milinda, like I have this issue, like what do you think? For most of us, we want to go and problem solve, and we want to figure it out for people. And then I have to really say to myself, no, what do you think? What do you think should happen, and why? Right. Because I might have the answer, and a lot of times I don't. But like, what is the answer that coworker thinks about? Like, how do they get there themselves?
That's fascinating.
To me, that's like one of the best things in the world. Yeah. But you have to really practice it. It's kind of like
as a leader, for sure.
You have to practice like not going into like solving mode.
Because your instinct. I mean, in all of our relationships, I think our instinct when someone asks for help is, what can I do? Right? Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, for me too, like I've always kind of been in a leadership role. I think like my family and friends are not surprised that I'm doing this, running for office, because they've always seen it as, Milinda likes to be in charge and she wants to be, leading a group. Right. But leading a group also means like it's not all about you. That's true. And that's something that I've learned over time. I think what you mentioned earlier in everything you said about leadership, being able to listen, being able to offer a space for people to provide timely and specific feedback, I think. Those are critical tenets to me of leadership that, at least in my experience, aren't often implied unless you actually are a practitioner of leadership. Like you're a student of how to serve people and get better. Yeah. Is that because it seems like you've said you have learned this over the course of your career? Yeah, no, I mean, when I was early in my career, I remember working at Cascade, and it was like, to me, being the leader was like always having the answer, raising my hand first. I'm going to be out in front. Exactly. Yeah. Like, and one of my sort of bosses from that time, Kenyatta Brame, who he's also in elected office for GRCC Board of Trustees. He was really like, no, like being a leader isn't that. Like it's not about you. Like all of that will come, the recognition, the support. But if you make it about you, people, to me, one of my biggest skills that I think I'm good at is like influencing people and getting people to see what could be. Right. Our managing director at the Source, Erica, she's like very black and white. She's like the analytical, financial person. I'm like, we'll figure it out. Right. It'll all work out in the end. Yeah. And
the two of us coming together and having very different styles, but also she as, somebody who reports to me, but also feeling really comfortable to say, no, Milinda, that's not right. Or why would we do it this way? Or you haven't thought about these 5 things.
Right.
We have been able to, I think, really grow the organization over the last 4 years. And it's because, I believe it's like a shared leadership model.
Right.
Like, I'm the person, the accountability stops with me, right?
Sure.
Like, I'm ultimately responsible
for
everything that happens, right? And also, the idea of shared leadership is one where everyone has a part, they feel important, they feel valued.
It's empowering, too. Like, you give them responsibilities to...
Absolutely. Yeah, no. And so I really enjoy being the people leader, being a leader of individuals, sort of at the source. I think with the campaign it's different, mostly because a lot of the people that are helping me have actually served in this role. So like Ruth Kelly is obviously serving in this role, but she's one of our key team members. Mary Alice Williams, she was a commissioner. She won in a write-in campaign, I think at the end of the 80s or beginning of the 80s, I don't remember. And the two of them are on the team, but yes, I'm the candidate, and it really is what I decide and what I think is the right decision. But it's a lot of listening to them. What are things that work? What are things that don't work? Nuances about really just how do you do this? Running for a local office, which is very different. I think than what people think, what you see on TV or what is if you were to run for, I think a lot of people are okay, we see what it's like to run for president with all these particularly Democratic candidates at this point. And it's my life is nowhere near that. I don't have handlers. I'm we're raising money all the time, but our campaign has really been fueled by volunteers, very grassroots based.
Knocking on doors,
listening to people, just other people being our surrogates in so many good and different ways. Just the other day, I had somebody who happened to see somebody, it was a friend of theirs down at the rally for climate change, and I think one of our supporters was wearing our t-shirt and talked to somebody else, and they said, I haven't had an opportunity to meet Milinda, but I'd like to. And quite honestly now, we're not having these big events. It really is just trying to meet people one-to-one. And I was able to meet that person, and now that one person has turned into I'm going to tell my husband and my 3 friends, and I'll go to my neighbors across the street. And so we're a completely volunteer-led campaign, but probably one of the best team members and one of the biggest supporters is my husband.
Awesome.
So he does the finances and what I would call the operations of the campaign. He's a project manager by nature, but by his job at Spectrum Health. And so he's always okay, what are the 3 things that we have to do today to win on November 5th? What are the 5 things you're going to do tomorrow to win on November 5th? And so instead of thinking there's this whole big blob of things we have to do, and my husband and I have very different styles. So he likes to know exactly what's happening and when is it going to happen? Are we prepared? And again, I'm I know I've got things pretty much figured out. And I have people around me that are going to help me get there. But so having a team, I think for the campaign is different in that it really is about people need to see that you're working just as hard as they're working.
Sure.
Because I'm the person that's going to be in the spot. So if I'm slacking off, if I'm not doing what I need to be doing, if I'm not returning calls, if I'm not following up, why the heck would anybody else that's volunteering want to do that? Yeah,
that's a good point. It's almost like a player and a captain. You're definitely the leader of the team. You're definitely the candidate. The people that are people are focused on you. But you're an equal player in everything that's getting done.
You are. And I think it's on the campaign, it's definitely a lead by example. So yesterday, my mom and dad came out and helped me for a couple of hours.
It's amazing.
And I'm really grateful that one, that they're healthy, they can do it, that they have time, that they have. Even just the things that we take for granted. Do people can volunteer who have gas to get to and from the places that we're volunteering, right? And so they came out. My dad's we can do more. I'm like, it's about to rain. I'm really hungry. And so, but knowing that my parents are out there and that they're giving up their time and energy, pushed me to do even more.
It seems like local politics is a lot of that. The people who love you most are going to contribute to help you get elected. Especially in a pure citizen campaign. I'm in this community, from this community, and they want you to be a leader.
Yeah, I think we had something like 300 unique donors before the primary on August 6th.
Yeah.
And on average, they donated like $90. But
Wow.
there are people that gave like $10
sure.
since we launched in January. I've had people write me a check for the full maximum amount that you can give and just been like completely astounded. And I've had people who are like, I can't give financially, but I'll come out and walk for you.
That's amazing.
I'll let my kids come out and walk for you.
That's how politics should feel in my mind. Like
Yeah.
it should really come from the community and the people who have an interest in you being elected.
Yeah, it's been great. It's one of the things, so there's a podcast I listen to, The Brown Girls Guide to Politics, and one of their guests one time said, I can't promise you that if you run for office that you'll win, but I can promise you that you'll win. So you're going to win something out of this, and I would not trade this experience. I don't regret it one minute. I don't know what's going to happen on November 5th. I hope, I hope, of course, that I win.
Yeah.
And I will never feel bad. I will never feel like I missed out on anything.
Right.
This has been one of the most exciting things that I've done, and I've done it with my husband and friends and family. And I also hope that it shows other people that they can do it too.
Yeah.
I was always sort of interested in politics and local government. I never saw myself in this particular position.
Right.
And I think it was just like people asking me to think about it, sort of shaping different narratives.
Right.
And yeah, I'm ready for it to be done, but it's also like
the campaign.
It's pretty, it gives you like a jolt of adrenaline.
I bet. Well, it sounds serendipitous that you wound up in this position. So that's awesome. Well, I appreciate that, because I think team building, a lot of people who are on teams don't understand the nature of team building.
Right.
And I think it's good to talk about leadership because not everyone's done it. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
How about we eat some more food and then continue on?
All right, sounds good.
Cool. A bed of mixed greens. Simple. Add some beautifully julienned carrots. Better. Don't forget those perfectly poppable, slightly tart, and mostly sweet cherry tomatoes. Superb. Of course, for crunch, add those toasted almonds. Then one of the stars of the show, sweet and enjoyable chewy dried apricots. And finally, another star of this dish, the quinoa. A superfood, a healthy grain, a delicious seed. Place a small dish of raspberry vinaigrette on the side and, wow, it's as pretty to look at as it is delicious. This is one of the most guilt-free items on the menu, but it sure as hell doesn't taste like it. Since you're running for office, and you're running for office in Grand Rapids 2nd Ward, I want to know, like, what are the tangible, not abstract problems that are facing the community right now? That people, that you could walk and knock on a door and say, what are you experiencing? And they would say, I'm experiencing this.
Yeah. So I think one of the things is just the lack of housing, both accessible, affordable, healthy in our community. Right. We see a lot of racialized outcomes in our housing, and particularly in our homelessness system.
Define that phrase for me, please.
So we see, I think it was K-Connect, which is the collective impact group of Kent County, which I'm on a couple of boards for them for. But they have recently done some research, and I think some other groups and a lot of other nonprofits. I'm not going to name them all, but was really focused. I think it's like 1 in 8, I don't know if it's black women or black men or just an African-American individual is out of the homelessness system. Yeah. And then it's like 1 in 160 white people are experiencing homelessness. So that's a racialized outcome there for you in terms of like, so more people, more black people in Grand Rapids are experiencing homelessness than are white people.
On a percentage basis.
So I think that's something, when I look at the issues, the things that I want to focus on is like, why is this happening? Whether we look at, we've had speakers that have come in Grand Rapids and talked about things like whether it's a city within a city or a color of law that talk about things like, redlining, even just like our infrastructure here in our city, like where 131 was sort of like cut across to divide like the city in half. And so like some people, I never came to the north side of Grand Rapids as a young person. I always grew up on the southeast side. We sort of stayed on that side of town. It wasn't until like high school, and whereas like we've set up these systems that were like to keep communities apart. So I think that's one of the biggest things. I think the other thing is definitely, we've been experiencing this really positive economic boom in our country, like great growth.
For 8-10 years now. Yeah.
However, when we look at some of the other sort of qualifiers of what is happening in our economy, like I just happen to see more homes for sale. They don't seem to be going as fast as they used to be. Are we on this loom of like there's a recession going to be happening in our country?
Right.
And so I think one of the realities of running for office is it is that operational, that financial. It's not always things that are like exciting and fun.
Yeah.
But it is like what happens sort of in our next economic downturn.
Right.
Because many people in the last recession, some people have not recovered from that last recession. And so if we see this on the horizon, how can we prepare? So I have been talking to some different communities that have engaged in like scenario planning in the event of like a full-on recession. What does that look like? How do we, as a community, come together, make sure all the resources are reaching the people who need the most support? And then, of course, I think something that is an opportunity right now is like investments in our parks. So we are going to have a parks millage on the ballot in November.
Good to know.
I'm supporting it. I believe that if we're focused on the health and well-being of our community, making investments in green spaces, making sure that everybody has access to activities that are outdoors that improve the quality of our life, are really important. I think there are realities of that where it is another investment in how can we make sure that everybody has access. Can pay for this millage.
Right.
And I think just really recognizing, if we want to be sort of like a world-class city, the city just engaged in some strategic planning over the last year, led by the city manager and the mayor.
Yeah.
And it really is about where is the infrastructure investments that need to happen across our community.
That's interesting because we've gotten at least a countrywide reputation as a beer city. We have Art Prize, which is has some global impact, right, or at least global recognition. But there are parts of the city that are underserved by infrastructure updates and that sort of thing. So it's good to hear that those are, you said they're not exciting, but I think they're super important.
I think they're exciting, but yes.
I think they're kind of exciting too, even tree pruning. So that's fun. But those are good, tangible examples of like what you're going to be working on. I think people need to hear that because I think budgets can be abstract to some degree when the budget item, the line item isn't affecting that individual person.
Right.
Well, that doesn't affect me. But to hear, these things do affect other people and here's what they are, I think that's important.
Yeah. It's sort of this, like, how do we become better, like, sort of global citizens?
Yeah.
I think it's been pretty awesome to see the city engage with how do we, reduce or end, maybe not end, but reduce or, stall the impact of, like, climate change in our city. So one of the top cabinet members for the city manager is putting an initiative forward, trying again to work with residents and businesses, governmental entities that really focus on. We're in this crisis, and how do we make sure that we are not contributing to the climate change that is occurring?
Right.
We all are. We're here. We're taking up space.
We drove a car here. We are contributing.
But like really understanding what can we do differently or better? What's the policy? What are the actions? So I think those are some of probably the biggest. You said ignite?
Yeah.
Or flame?
This one's the flame. You got it, exactly.
The flame. So there's lots of flames. And for me, I think we just need more discourse in our community. So how can we talk about things? Not everybody agrees with everything that I might believe in. I am always open to listening to other people to understand what their experiences were. And what I loved about that meeting with the Urban Forestry Committee is that residents came in, they were frustrated, and they were also like, how can we work together to
ready
solve
to work.
This?
Let's do this together.
So
what you mentioned earlier, you mentioned that you have a coworker who has a different personality than you, but has very similar principles. And that dynamic works fantastically. And I think the same is true of a community, right? It leads to better outcomes when you have people from diverse backgrounds working principally towards something important.
Right, absolutely. So I think that whole idea of discourse and the being able to talk about issues versus talking about people or tearing people down. To me, that's one of the best things that we can do. To me, that shows that you're engaged in our city, that you want to be here, and so it could have been really contentious. People could have been frustrated or upset. And they were frustrated or upset. They wanted
there was
know
passion
how they.
there.
This is our city. You know, how do we make sure that, you know, people's investments in their homes and our neighborhoods look good?
Yeah.
And I really I left that meeting. I had to go to something else, and I left that meeting thinking, like, this is like what local government is about.
Yeah.
Making sure that people have a voice, and this is their experience on their block, and they came here to tell us about it.
Well,
yeah, absolutely.
That's a good answer. I think the real problems are important to get away from the generalization of, you know, of campaign platforms. So,
right.
yeah,
Yep,
good.
Yep, those are the things I've seen.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So one of my favorite topics is failure and overcoming failure and, you know, acknowledging that failure is a part of the life experience.
Yep, absolutely.
So my question to you is, how do you handle it? When did you experience it? You know, what is the importance of failure in your life?
I mean, I think about, you know, I think sometimes you get to a certain point in your life and then people are like, oh, everything has gone like perfectly for you, and you're like living this like beautiful life.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, don't get me wrong, like there have been so many positives, and I know I have like privilege in my life, but I mean, failure has been just, it's humbling. It's like, it's gonna happen to everybody.
Yeah.
I think I used to joke with like my friends at Grand Valley. I probably applied for like 10 different jobs at Grand Valley. I always wanted to work at Grand Valley.
Right.
And I feel like out of 5 of those jobs, it was always like, you're our second choice, or you were great, but we're not picking you.
That's a real failure.
And it was like a real failure.
Yeah.
And it was also because like I had gone to school there, I'd been really involved.
Yeah.
And I think that hurt more because I was like part of the community, and I just wanted to be like more part of the community.
Right.
And I remember when my dad got a job at Grand Valley,
It's
I think
like
he
looking in through the window.
Yeah. I was like, I want to wear Grand Valley attire to work.
Yeah.
And then like my dad applied for a job at Grand Valley, and I think he got it. They told him like he got the job on like the second day after he interviewed or something.
Like right away.
And I was like, seriously? But I mean, that was probably that's the one I remember a lot because it's like, I don't know. I still think in the future I'd love to work in like higher ed.
Of course.
I think I'd bring some good perspective. But I mean, I think the biggest amount of failure that I've experienced is one has been like around running for office. Like prior to running for city commission, I ran other times. I ran for library board.
Yeah.
I ran for GRCC Board of Trustees, and I ran for school board.
Yeah.
For library board, it was like 25. They said, nobody's running. Just do it. Get your name out there.
Yeah.
I did it, and then like 7 other people decided to run.
Oh, of course.
So then like I didn't win. That was a failure.
Yeah.
I don't think I knew how to process at the time. I think I just assumed. I think that's when I learned like anything worth having is not going to be easy.
Ooh,
you know?
good point. Yeah.
So it was hard, and it should have been hard, and I just didn't understand the dynamics of that. I didn't have a team around me at that point.
That's important.
When I did GRCC Board of Trustees, it was something similar. Like not that many people are running. I was working at Cascade. This would be great. 7 people decided to run. And I remember being in a candidate forum and being like, I'm pretty good. Like, I'm probably going to win. And then, no, I was like number 4 or 5 out of the top 2 out of the 7. And then when I ran for school board, I ran in a reaction. Like, I decided to run way too late. I don't think I was doing it necessarily because I wanted to. I think I was doing it in opposition to something, which I would suggest to people, don't ever do that. Like, do something because you really want to do it.
Right.
And, you know, I think at that point, I remember a couple of people telling me, like, I think you'd be good, but I'm not supporting you. I remember somebody who was, like, on the school board who was like, I can't even talk to you because I'm supporting somebody else, which I just completely disagree with. Like,
that's bizarre.
If people disagree with me, or say people are not supporting me, and hopefully when I win, I want to, like, make sure I particularly connect to people who didn't support me.
Of course.
You know, because I think that shows something about, like, the kind of person I want to be on commission is listening to everybody, even if they disagree with me. So those failures, I think, I mean, honestly, those failures, I think, help fuel me to get to this point about city commission.
That's what I'm excited to hear. Yeah. Like,
so
they do provide fuel. This question could just as easily be called fuel, right?
Yeah,
like,
I think you're right.
Yeah.
And so it was the fuel to say, okay, Milinda, like, are you... talking about myself in the third person.
That's
weird,
okay.
but I try not
do you want me to say
that.
it? Okay, Milinda.
But, you know, okay, do you have the time? Do you have the energy? Like, what are you going to give up? Like, I have immense, like, FOMO. Like, I mean, Friday there was this concert, and, like, all of our friends went, and I was just like, everybody went to the concert with me. My husband's like, you need to get over this. Like, we're running a campaign. I'm like, I know, I can't go to the concert on Friday because I have to be ready to go on Saturday.
Yep.
So that failure helped say to me, I'm going to do every single thing in my power to control as much as I can control to be successful.
Yep.
But there's so many other things I can't control. I can't control in the end, like, I can't control anything about my opponent. I can't control anything.
Yeah.
All I can do is present like the best sort of story about like why I would be the best person to run. And so those failures of the past really made me say, like, take it more seriously, like really evaluate it with my husband. Is this something that we're going to do together? Because I do believe it's me and I doing it together.
I feel like you mentioned rivalries. I just want to talk about that briefly. Well, I think I interpreted it as rivalries. You mentioned that a person that was the friend of someone who was running against you said they couldn't talk to you.
Yeah.
I think that team-based mentality to politics is almost toxic.
Yeah.
Like, I understand coalitions. I understand that, when you're voting, it's a judgment call and it's still this person over that person. But ultimately, like, rivalries, shouldn't they go away?
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you this question. I'm not going to extrapolate on this. Shouldn't they go away as soon as you're elected?
Yes. I mean, I think once you're elected, you are there to serve every single person of that body that you're serving.
Right.
Once you're elected, you really start to sort of like, you move in a different way. So, I mean, we were talking about Parks and Rec earlier, right?
Yes, I love Parks and Rec.
So, like, the way that Leslie Knope was, like, in her campaign, she wanted to run. She was, like, fierce, anything it takes.
Yes.
And, I think about her and, like, Bobby Newport.
Yes.
And, like, just...
Dear Bobby.
he just had it so easy.
Yeah.
But, like, Leslie, I think, she didn't even want to see, like, Bobby fail in certain ways.
Right,
or, like,
absolutely.
struggle. And so I think that's what we have to do is we have to say, like, there's so many things that I'm missing out on right now, but I wouldn't trade it because I'm focused on this campaign.
Right.
And like once I'm elected, I mean, for me in particular, that's something I wrote down. I have like 10 notebooks, but my notebook about my campaign.
You are a little Leslie Knope if you have notebooks.
I have multiple notebooks. I like pens.
Do you like binders?
And I don't have too many binders right now.
Notebooks is good enough.
But no, I have a lot of notebooks. I have a lot of pens. I only like to write in certain color. It's, it's the control I need in my life right now.
It's whatever you need.
But I have written down like what happens on like November 6th if I win.
That's great.
And one of the things is like reaching out to people that weren't necessarily like supporting you.
Yeah.
And I see people, sort of like every week, every month that, are supporting my opponent. And if I know that person, I make it a point to go and talk to them because they've made a decision. I'm going to respect that.
Absolutely.
I still want to have relationships with people.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Well, I think we don't talk about failure enough as a society in terms of it's okay. Like, it happens, it molds people, it changes people.
Yeah.
So I always bring it up in almost all of these interviews because I want people to hear that it's okay.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to take this to heart. You don't have to let it put you in a downward spiral, right? You can conquer this, move on, change your perspective, grow. Yeah. You can do all these things.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, no, I think behind every sort of like shiny like post about who we are and what we're doing, there's like the post that you almost wrote or people write about like just things not going right.
Exactly. Absolutely.
I always say like, I believe in like sharing, your failures. I also believe in like, don't let people feast on your failure.
No, not at all. That's a good point.
Like sometimes we put too much out there.
I agree.
And I always say like, save a little bit of it for yourself because don't let people feast on what's happening in your life. I think, the dramas and the kind of the stuff behind the scenes, that's not something you have to talk about necessarily. Right. Yep.
But I think it's more the acknowledgement maybe of like professional failures or like these things that just happen that can be recovered from.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. So no, I think it's important to talk about and just making sure that. And also knowing, I try to tell this to like my like little cousins that are like my nieces and nephews, like you're not going to get everything that you want. Everything's not going to work out.
That's a good point too. Yeah.
So I'm a big believer of like your circle of influence, your circle of control, your circle of concern, which is like 7 Habits, Covey, 101 at Cascade Engineering.
Sure.
You learn about this. So, I mean, in the past, I would be so frustrated about things, and I'm like, my husband would be like, "Why do you even care about that? You can't do anything about it."
Yeah.
And so it's like, no, focus on what you have control over, and I guarantee you'll be like happier.
Man, that's we could do another conversation on that for sure. Well, I think our chocolate pancakes are up. You ready for this?
I'm ready.
All right, let's do it.
Okay.
Rich, wickedly awesome pancakes infused with chunks, not chips, of dark chocolate. Very high quality, sure. Very Belgian, yeah, of course. But most importantly, this thing covers the whole plate. It's the hungry man's or hungry woman's take on your family's Sunday morning special. Belgium has chocolate, Michigan has trees, so you know you're going to get some Michigan-made maple syrup with these chocolate chunk pancakes. Top it all off with a healthy dusting of powdered sugar. Dark chocolate is healthy, right? Anyone? No? I mean, whatever. It's delicious. All right, so you ready for the fifth question?
Sure.
All right, cool. So this one's probably the easiest.
Okay.
Or maybe, I don't know, you might think it's the hardest. But so we're experimenting with this question.
Okay.
We did it in our last shoot and we're doing it in this shoot. It's open.
Okay.
Like, what are you thinking about? What's bothering you? What's inspiring you? What do you enjoy? It's an open question.
Okay.
So for some people that's really hard. Some people it's not.
Okay.
But it can be literally anything from Parks and Rec to whatever.
Okay. Well, I don't. It's funny. Like, two things. So one is a little bit on the lighter side. Is running for office. You try to sometimes you try to escape the world that you're in.
Yeah.
So right now, currently on my Netflix is Frasier. I don't know why I watch Frasier so many times. I think it is so funny and smart, and very pretentious, but I love it. So that's my first answer. What's on my Netflix queue?
Right.
And then I also have guilty pleasures Made in Mexico, which is a reality show about a bunch of wealthy people living in Polanco, which is the Beverly Hills in Mexico City.
Oh, okay.
So I don't try. I work really hard, but I try not to take myself too seriously.
Right.
But then the other thing that I'm really excited about,
Yeah.
and it's one of these things where it kind of feels like Christmas, is
I like
our Latina Network of West Michigan 5-year celebration.
Yes, tell me about
that. It's a group that we started, myself and 3 friends, in 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And we are now a nonprofit, but our whole goal was to try to connect other Latinas in Grand Rapids to one another, or West Michigan to one another.
Right.
Really through professional development opportunities, through networking, through supporting one another, helping people without, like yesterday on the thread was salary negotiation question.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Supporting other events. One of our other groups in Grand Haven, they're having the first Hispanic, or I'm not sure if they're calling it Hispanic or Latino festival in Grand Haven, which is a really big deal.
Yeah.
That's happening next weekend. But on October 2nd is our 5-year celebration at the Goey Center. And so I invite everybody to come.
Yeah,
it's going to be fun.
The Goey Center.
Yeah, head out there. We have tickets on sale.
We might launch this episode a little later in October, so we can say it was an amazing event.
I know it's going to be amazing.
Yeah,
So, but that's what I'm really excited about. So even though it's the event is happening and it might come later, it's really about that group. That group brings me so much energy and joy.
How big is the group? Why did it get started, and how has it evolved?
We got started because there was 4 of us, and we felt like we were always being asked to be on boards. We need Latinos, we need more representation, we need people of color. And we're we cannot be, the 4 of us felt like we are always getting asked to do this.
Yeah.
And there's got to be other people, and we know that there's other people.
Right.
But again, through social capital and connecting, we were able to say, in our group right now, I think there's 500 people that are connected to the network.
That's amazing.
I would say at average about 90 people come to our events.
Yeah, that's still good. I mean, that's a high participation rate.
And many of the women, I'm running for office, but there's also been women who have run for office or been appointed to office who serve in really big ways. One of my other friends who's the founder, she's the first ever top Latina in the executive office of the city of Grand Rapids. That's Stacy Stout. My other friend, Becca Velasquez-Kublas, who I mentioned, runs a nonprofit called Urban Core Collective, and they're doing amazing work, just trying to connect and grow leaders of color, both black and brown leaders in Grand Rapids. And then my other friend, Allison Lugo-Knapp, she moved out to Portland, but she does consulting for national foundations and is leading work around equity and a farmer's market out in Portland, and gives me a reason to go out to Portland.
Yeah, it's a good excuse to get out there.
But we just came together and we said, we can't be the only people who are feeling this way.
Yeah.
And so I met some of my closest friends. My sister's a part of it. My mom has come to events. The guys, there's a West Michigan Latino network that my husband's a part of that they started subsequently, after our group.
Amazing.
So that's the group that just gives me a lot of joy, that makes me excited, that I really care about them a lot. So I mentioned I have no kids or no pets, and so part of me says, where do I get this? My friends who have kids and pets and they do all this stuff and are in the community, I have so much respect for them.
Yeah.
I do have a couple of plants. They're not dead yet.
They're not dead yet. Good.
They're
young.
They're mostly desert plants. So
That's good.
So we'll see. Maybe they'll die in the winter. But like I said, I get a lot of energy from other people.
Yeah.
I have fear of like missing out on things.
Yeah.
I like to get groups of people together to hang out, and so, you know, last night I took like a rest day, and I was like, I got up and I'm like, I have to know what everybody else did last night.
Yeah.
What's everybody doing today?
Yeah.
And so I just feel like we never know what's going to happen in our lives, and just trying to enjoy like every moment of it is just really important.
Yeah. Well, I'm really glad you told us about your Netflix queue, because I feel like that should be a part of every interview.
Sure.
Second to last question is about motivation. It's a favorite topic of mine. I think it's an important one. I think not enough people really understand what gets them out of bed in the morning. Like, they might have a job and their alarm goes off and that sort of thing, but it's different to think through your motivation and what your life goals are, etc. So how have you styled your life to serve your community? Because it's obvious it's all about the community to you. And then we'll talk about voting after that.
Yeah. Well, I believe in this whole idea of like, you have to set like small goals for yourself. I have a little bit of OCD, so for me, having a routine in the morning is really important. One of my friends, Jermel Eddy, who owns Malamaya Juice Bar, that is actually moving to Studio Park, he really inspired me, because he would start and he would post on Facebook, like sitting out on his porch, drinking his coffee, reading either like his devotional or reading other books, spending time with his children. And I think growing up, I always thought like you just get up and you just get ready to go. Right. And so one of the things that I've really done for my motivation to keep me going throughout the day is, you know, starting the morning, waking up a little bit earlier, making some tea. I absolutely love tea. I love mint. I love peppermint. I would love to have a little tea shop, just because I don't drink coffee. And so starting with some tea. I have a really important and critical like skincare regimen that I follow. And
that's fair. It's a good routine.
You know, it just makes me feel energized. I love makeup. I love clothes. I'll admit that. But in my head, I'm always like, how can I make my clothes or my hair like an expression of who I am? Yeah. And so we got our green jackets on
we
today.
We ended up matching.
But so, you know, on the weekends, my routine differs a little bit. But I think if you have a routine, and this is what I, like my young cousin, he's like, you know, how do you do all this stuff in a day? And I was like, because I know what I'm going to do from like the moment I get up until the end of the day, and having that plan is really good in terms of motivation. I think the other thing is, you know, I don't have a group per se right now, but in the past I've had like what I've called my personal board of directors, who are the people that I feel like I'm accountable to outside of like my family, my husband. Yeah,
that's a concept that's been popularized over really like the last 6-7 years. How do you apply it?
Yeah, so in the past, like I said, I'm not doing it right now because I feel like I have a lot of people waiting on things in my life, but
that's okay.
In the past, like I had one of my really good friends, she's now in Dallas, but we worked together at Herman Miller, and she was Maxine Gray. She is like one of my motivational buddies. She was somebody who just could get so much stuff done in a day, and so we would like ride together to work sometimes, like over lunch would focus on what we wanted to do, a lot of like vision boarding, a lot of like, this is what we're going to be able to do, how do we make this happen. I remember once like we read about this guy who was doing some cool stuff in career development, and then before you knew it, a conference that we were hosting a few years later, we got that guy to come and speak, and that was something like, she's like, we're going to get this done. She was just like one of my most energizing and motivating friends. So I think you need to have people around you who also want those things in life.
That's a great perspective.
So that was sort of how I applied my board of directors, is like, I'm only going to give time to people who like want to do things in the same way that I want to do it, in terms of like they have a goal. Another one of my friends who's
it's not that their opinion was the same as yours, it's that they're principally the same as yours, right? Like you're heading in the same direction. You can work together on something even if their opinion differs.
Right, because some people, and that's okay, is like I'm never going to be involved with this, or I don't want to do this, or they have other stuff going on, and I totally respect that. And then, like, for me, I need to be motivated. Like, I'm motivated when I see other people, because I am a little competitive in nature.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
You know, I think
it's good to have that. Yeah, that's awesome.
One of my other friends, Isabel Garcia, she's a local photographer. just recently I told my husband, I'm like, oh my gosh, Isabel's giving me so much motivation. Like, social media will do this too. She was on Snapchat and she's been renovating her home with a friend of hers.
Oh, wow.
Plus she owns a photography business. Plus, like, she's going out of the country.
Yeah.
Like, all these sorts of things that she does in her life. She works part-time in a nonprofit. I'm like, if Isabel has time to, like, redo her house,
yeah,
I have time to, like, vacuum my carpet. You know what I mean?
That's good.
And
like,
so,
it's competitive for you, then a little bit.
So to me, motivation is about, like, people around you.
Yeah.
A bit of competition,
yeah.
and then kind of like we talked about before, leading by example. Like when I see other people doing stuff, I have another friend right now who's like, she was like, I want you to come with me to go work out this morning. I'm like, well, I can't today because I'm going to do this. Like, we're going to do this show, and she's like, okay, next week. So then I put it in my calendar.
Yeah.
I know it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So I'm really intentional with like planning and scheduling, and that helps with my motivation.
I think your type of motivation seems to be a part of you now. Like, it's not, it's externally sourced in that you have that, like you said, the board of directors around you, or these close friends. Yeah. But it also, like, you've made it a part of your personality. It's a part of your habits.
Yep.
It's not something that you're reading a motivational book on and then trying to do those things.
Yes.
Like, you've very much made it a part of your everyday routine. Speaking of everyday routine, I want to talk about the morning. It sounds like you have like a morning almost like silent period, like a contemplative or learning period before you get ready.
Absolutely.
Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it revolves around drinking of tea.
Yeah.
Sometimes it revolves around, if I don't feel like I have enough time, or if maybe the night went a little bit too late, which happens now.
Yeah.
It's around like my skincare routine.
Sure. Do you meditate?
I don't meditate, and I have so many friends that are like, you need to meditate.
I don't either. I feel like I should. I hear it's good.
And I'm like, my brain doesn't turn off sometimes.
Yeah.
That's what I tell my friends.
Yeah.
And like, no, you really need to do this. So like, I'm looking actually across the street at Flip Dog Yoga.
Oh, yeah.
I've taken some awesome classes there.
Okay.
That have been like yoga practice, a little bit of like meditation. And when I do that, I feel completely better. I'm really big into lighting of rooms too. So one of the best purchases of 2019 has been my Casper glow light.
Ooh, okay.
So I have a Casper bed.
Yeah.
But then I just really like the whole idea. Like, we live in an older home, so like our upstairs is a converted attic, so it's pretty narrow.
Yep.
And so I got my Casper bed up there probably now like 7 years ago, and it's great. And so when they came out with this light product that helps you go to sleep, it slowly dims.
And then slowly wakes you up too?
And it slowly wakes you up. So this morning I wanted to get up at 7. I timed it. It's on my phone.
Yeah.
But it's also just like good. I try to use it sometimes when I'm going to sleep. If I'm not quite ready to go to sleep, but I want to like quiet my mind.
Yeah.
So like lighting is really important to me.
Interesting.
Smells, I love. Like my current smell that I'm in love with is just like agave nectar.
Agave nectar,
have, like,
okay.
A lot of agave oil, agave candles.
Is that related to your spirit of choice as well?
Not really.
Okay.
I don't think so. Yes, I like tequila.
Yeah.
I like to be a connoisseur of tequila, but no, I just think I like.
You just like the agave
green.
scent.
Green is like my campaign color.
Yeah.
And so I think, I just agave nectar is. I have that in a lot of my.
That sounds
my products
interesting.
right now,
I can't imagine the smell offhand.
Yeah, it's
but
not overwhelming, so that's why I like it.
Yeah, it sounds fresh.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
I don't know how we got to that, but.
Well, we talked about motivation and morning routines and that sort of thing, so that's good.
Yeah.
All right, well, I think our French toast is probably coming pretty soon. You want to do that?
Sounds good.
All right, cool.
Okay.
At Creston, they are keeping the French toast French. Thick slices of French bread, a rich egg bath, a dollop or 2 or 3 of delicious creme chantilly, whipped cream, more powdered sugar, more Michigan maple syrup, and a side of fresh fruit. It's as refined as it is rustic. The only French toast made for a lumberjack. All right, are you ready?
Yeah.
For the next one? All right, so we have one more question.
Okay.
This is called the sizzle.
Okay. It's fajitas.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I think about.
We can ask a question about fajitas.
Food all day long.
Yeah, exactly. So this is really about what's next for you.
Okay.
What's next for the source? What's next for your campaign? We're going to launch this episode around the end of October.
Okay.
So I think it's about voting. I think we should talk about the importance of voting.
Yeah.
But it's also, if there's any trends that you're seeing, like social trends or political trends in your business, things people are talking about, and I
Yeah.
say business, in your organization, I think we should talk about those too. So
Yeah.
there's kind of different sections of this, but
Okay.
start wherever you like.
Okay, I'll start with the source. We're continuing to grow. Over the last 4 years, we've added 9 new member companies, so
Wow.
9 amazing organizations to go along with the rest that we have, so for a total of 21. One of the projects I'm most excited about with the source is a on-site career development center that we've established with Mercy Health in a partnership with West Michigan Works, which is they're one of our great partners.
Is West Michigan Works just a branch of Michigan Works?
So they're an association, so they're the one that's over
okay.
like our 7-county region
I see.
here,
Gotcha.
particularly close, like Kent County. I
Yep.
don't remember all the counties.
Sure.
My friends there are probably going to be mad that I don't
It's
remember.
okay.
But Kent County, Ottawa County,
Yep.
7 counties sort of in our region. But yes, then there's other similar like Michigan Works around the state.
Okay.
But they're the Workforce Development Board. They're a great partner agency. I'm really happy to work with them and Mercy Health. So we're doing this with Mercy Health to essentially have evidence-based career coaching. So once Mercy Health engaged in evidence-based hiring practices to bring in better quality candidates, people that were going to stay longer. They've also increased their diversity when they've done it. And they have made an investment along with one of our funders, the Kellogg Foundation, to have this on-site career development center. So that's probably the most exciting thing that we did in 2018, 2019.
Yeah.
And we're just looking to grow, and it's hard to believe that we're going into October and that we're going to be here at the end of the year.
Yeah.
But I'm just really, everything with work in the source is really good. And I just see
Good.
continued success there. So if there's anybody who's watching who's a part of a company that is interested about our services, reach out to us at grsource.org.
grsource.org. I like your website.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's informational. It's awesome.
We redid that about 4 years ago. So right when I was coming in, the team was working on revamping it. So we were just saying, like, do we need a new refresh? We want like more videos and things like that. But
I think so. Well, you'll get some video out of this.
Okay, cool.
I promise. Yeah.
So that, and then with the campaign, the biggest thing when this launches, it will be a few short weeks until Election Day. So Election Day is on Tuesday, November 5th. There's a lot of different races going on. So our race in the 2nd Ward, there's a race for 1st Ward Commissioner. No race for 3rd Ward Commissioner because there's the appointed incumbent has no challenger. And then the mayor is running as well.
Okay.
There's a Parks Millage on the ballot as well. So I really encourage people to check out, no matter where, because anybody could be watching this. To check out what they have on their ballot, and the best thing that people can do now, if they don't want to, like maybe they don't think they have enough time to go to the polls, they work a lot, they can sign up to do no reason absentee voting in their city. I actually decided to do absentee voting for the primary. So I didn't go to the school gym to vote for myself. I did it in the comfort of my home.
That's nice.
And I did so, that was a hard decision, but I did so because I wanted to show that it's important to increase the access to voting for people. So Prop 3, which passed last summer, which was focused on no reason absentee voting. So the city, we did see a number of people increase and submit an absentee ballot. So
Awesome.
I think that's working, and any ways that we can make voting easier and more accessible, we should do that.
Yeah.
And people can check out my website, electmelinda, MILINDA, .com to find out more information about me, ways to volunteer, to contribute, and
events,
like I said,
all that sort of
events.
thing.
Yeah, I think the next event that we're going to have will happen before this comes out.
Sure.
But I want to be, my tag is like, I want to be reliable, responsive, and that I'm ready to serve the 2nd Ward of Grand Rapids. And so part of that is my contact information is on there. I encourage people to call me, send me an email if they have any questions.
That's awesome. I think that should be more common. Like direct contact with people who care.
Absolutely. So I am accessible and I want to be accessible.
I'm glad.
So, and then, the Latino Network, if anybody's watching, is in West Michigan, is Latino, wants to join. We have a Facebook page. It's the Latino Network of West Michigan. They can also reach out to me to try to get connected. I just want to make sure that, so often there are these opportunities, and we just need to know if we make sure we keep growing our social network, our social connections. Hopefully everybody will be able to find that prosperity and, access here in our community. So that's really what my campaign is all about, making sure that, people have that access to opportunity. My great-grandparents came to Grand Rapids 1948, 1949. and they were able to build this middle-class life for themselves. My grandparents did, my parents, and my husband and I. Not everybody in this city has that opportunity.
Right.
Either they can't access training or education because it's too expensive, or they don't have somebody to watch their kids. And what I want to say is, like, if we want to be this growing and prosperous city, we want to be on these lists, we have to make sure that this prosperity and growth includes everybody in our city.
That is a fantastic statement. It should absolutely include everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for doing this interview.
Yeah, absolutely, Jay. This is fun.
Good. I'm glad. You are a remarkable person.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh,
Yeah.
come on.
Come in and get that toy.
Hi.
We did kind of set up in the way of toys.
How are you doing? Yeah, good to see you. You too. Oh. Yeah, they do.
There we go.
They have toys and alcohol. Oh yeah, okay. Hey Mel, how are you doing?